So my name's Max Yoder. I'm sitting here with Terry Daniel, and I met Terry through the introduction of a friend. Terry, I'll let you describe your job, but I consider you my therapist. So thank you for working with me for, 15, 16 months now?
Yeah, roughly.
It's a pleasure to be with you. How do you describe your job and your work?
So I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. I'm not a part of a group. I'm a solo practitioner. I work primarily with individuals, but also with couples. A long time ago, I used to do work with children, inpatient at Community Hospital North. I'm semi-retired at this point, so I'm only working 2 days a week. But I like it. I like it still.
Yeah, you're good at it. I've appreciated our conversations a lot. One of the things that I've shared with the team in the past, but for folks who maybe knew or forgot, that has been one of the most beneficial things you've pointed out to me. Or you really asked me the question, which was, hey Max, do you equate being stimulated to good and a lack of stimulation to kind of bad? Mm-hmm. Like, is stimulated for you a positive thing, and boredom or kind of a lack of stimulation, a bad thing? And I was like, yeah, totally. I attribute activity, doing, achievement, right? And a lack of those things to be a con. And you really encouraged me, and I've taken this advice to heart, to spend more time in a lack of stimulated state, calm, breathing, not having the next thing to achieve always be right ahead of me, just enjoying peace. Whether it's breathing exercises, meditation, just taking a walk. But you noticed in my voice when we talk, the high pitch versus the kind of calmer self.
Yeah. Well, if we don't take time to just be, doing nothing, just being, then we'll tend to lose our way after a while. So we get caught up in the doing, and all the demands of doing begin to pull us forward in their direction. Yeah. And we may not know for sure that's the way we want to go, and we may not even ask because we're just doing stuff.
Right.
So I need to come back to myself and get grounded in myself, because that's where my sense of who I am and what my purpose is on this earth really lives.
Right.
This is related to boundaries, by the way.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Keep going.
Yeah. Whether I'm having trouble setting boundaries or not, my capacity to set boundaries really begins with me and my relationship to myself. So if I'm not okay with myself in some way, that will show up in my interactions with others.
How so?
For example, if I feel like somehow I'm not quite good enough, then sometimes when people make demands on me, I will go with their demands almost blindly in order to make them happy, so they will think I'm good enough.
Right.
Even though inside I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't possibly fulfill these expectations. This is going to be too much. But I won't put the boundary there because I don't feel good enough about myself.
Right. So my sense of myself in that situation, if I feel I'm not good enough, is going to drive activity that might not even be serve me in any way, right?
Right.
Somebody comes to me and says, hey Max, can you do X, Y, or Z? And in order to feel good enough for that brief moment, I'll say yes, even if it's not where my heart is, it's not where my mind is, it's not what I want to do.
Right.
Yeah, I relate to that deeply. If we don't give ourselves space, what I'm hearing you say is the inertia of activity can just drag us along. Mm-hmm. And that can happen not just for a day, not just for a week, not just for a month, not just for a year, for decades.
Yes.
There are, I'm sure, people who exist who look behind them and say, oh my gosh, the last 30 years I've just been taken, and maybe had lost a sense for themselves. Yeah. And so your push to me of finding the time for peace and quiet is a way to kind of get back in touch with what matters to me.
There are a couple of ways I think that can show up for somebody. They can be deep into their career, many years in, and then even successful, and wondering why they feel empty.
Yeah.
Why aren't they feeling good? Why aren't they feeling happy and fulfilled? Because somewhere along the line they abandoned the essence of who they are in the service of the company or the institution or the mission or whatever. The other place it shows up is in couples, when the kids leave and they're empty nesters now, and they wonder, what the hell am I doing with this person?
Yeah. They've lost touch with one another.
They've lost touch with each other and with themselves.
Okay.
And those two are related, right?
Yeah, how so?
Well, in order to really be in touch with my partner, I have to show up as the real person that I am. I can act like I'm in touch with you, right? Be an imposter, look good, right? But it won't really resonate with me. And if I have a good partner, they'll pick up on it and say, it's kind of like you're here, but somehow you're not here.
Yeah, very good. So it all comes back to being in touch with ourselves.
Yes.
And I wanted to speak with you today specifically about something I noticed when we kind of came out of the COVID world. And the COVID world continues, right? But there was a lockdown of 15 months or so,
right,
where we got the opportunity to have time to ourselves, and people couldn't really manipulate our schedules in the way they used to, right? The after work dinners stopped, the trips stopped, space freed up. And I think a lot of people, I know a lot of my teammates found that to be very liberating, that all of a sudden they had this, while it was a tough moment to be in, where there's a global pandemic and crisis, there was some gifts in there of, hey, if I'm not very good at saying no, I just all of a sudden didn't have to say no anymore, and life opened up for me, and people really appreciated it. And we're shifting back into a world where there are more demands on people's time, right? Travel is opening back up. There are after work dinners. People are coming back into the office, here and there. But they might not have built the muscle, right, of saying no because they never really had to. Right. They've now experienced what it's like to have more time to themselves, to do things they want to do, but never had to really build the muscle. And I think assertiveness is how we build the muscle, right? Developing a sense of self-assertiveness.
Right.
When you think about self-assertiveness, how do you think of that? How do you define it?
Well, I think that proceeds from my not having any fear for whether the other person's going to find me acceptable. They may or may not like me, but I'm still willing to be myself and to bring my true gifts to the table.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I have. This is also what I don't have.
Yep.
And if I've come to terms with that, that's the being with myself part again, then I can just share. I don't have to assert myself over against you.
Yeah.
I just express myself as myself, for myself, with you.
Right.
And then we see what happens. If I'm a more codependent person, by the way, being alone during COVID was not particularly good for me.
Yeah.
I probably began to feel very lonely because I derive a sense of being here from my connection to other people.
Yeah.
So I get it secondarily from your energy.
Yeah.
Right? So now I'm alone, I don't have the energy to provide it for myself, and now I have to face myself in a way that makes me very uncomfortable.
Sure.
So assertiveness is not about doing anything to anybody else.
Yeah.
It's really about being able to come forth from that deep center or that essence of who I am and share that freely to see if we have work to do together.
So if somebody wants to see something happen in the world, like a project, and they invite me into that project, and I also want to see that happen in the world, then we're working.
Yeah.
And maybe they have a project and I don't really have interest in that project.
Yeah.
Assertiveness would not be stopping them from doing the project. It's not about that.
No.
It's just about saying, I'm not interested in that project.
Yeah, or maybe they have a timeline that I can't meet.
Yeah.
And so I say, I like the idea, I like the project, but I can't meet that timeline.
Yeah.
So either we change the timeline, or I like to refer you to so-and-so, I think they have more time right now.
Yeah.
But again, if I'm worried about how am I showing up in the company, how am I showing up with my boss, or with the client, with the customer, right? I may not say anything like that.
Right.
Because I don't feel comfortable enough in my own skin.
Right. So it all comes down to accepting of oneself. If I accept myself, then I can come into any situation and decide, can I or can I not do the work here?
Right. And
I'm not nervous about letting somebody down, because that's not where my sense of self comes from, right?
Right.
It's somebody saying, hey Terry, I really needed you on this, or hey Max, I really needed you on this. That might not be my burden to carry, right? Or something different. No,
that's right. I think experientially the way that'll show up is, in fact, I will be nervous about whether or not you're going to be okay with me and what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And what helps me at that point is to be able to separate from that nervousness enough to simply be aware of it and see it. It's what I call the capacity to be with yourself.
Okay.
And maybe in the moment I can notice, oh wow, that's that old nervousness I often feel. I'm about to make this move. No, I'm not going to make that move. Step back a little bit, right? Not make myself wrong or say I'm a bad person. What the hell is wrong with me for feeling nervous? I just do. It's okay. But I'm not going to operate from there. I'm going to operate from here. Gosh, I'd like to do that, but I really haven't got the time.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. And so I know my teammates will ask the question, but what if it's my job? And I feel overwhelmed at work, and somebody has come to me and said, I need this from you, and I don't have any more to give without something else, falling down or dropping off.
Well, hopefully I'm in a work setting where I can say that to somebody.
Yeah, hope so too.
You know, maybe to that person even, but certainly to somebody higher up, you know, that has more authority over how these things go.
Yeah.
I might have to say, you know, I'm feeling kind of jammed up around this request right now. I really can't do this.
Yeah.
Help me out here. What do I need to do, or what do we need to do in this project?
Yeah. Yeah, so coming to them and saying, hey, go ahead.
And again, I won't even say that if I'm not okay with myself.
Right.
Because I'll be thinking, oh, they'll think I really can't do the job.
Yeah.
I dare not tell my boss that.
Right.
So in companies that I think are more like yours, where there's room for people to share like that,
Yeah.
things can move along more readily and people can be feeling better. Nothing sells better than my own well-being.
Tell me more about that when you say that.
So you have a business where you have customers who either want your stuff or don't want your stuff.
Right.
And whether I want your stuff depends a lot upon whether I trust you.
Yeah.
And if you have a funky vibe, like you're working too hard to sell it, I'm not going to want it.
Right.
But if you're okay with yourself,
Yeah.
I'll feel okay with you.
Right.
And I'll trust you. Like, you're not going to lie to me or hold out expectations that you can't possibly meet. And so I'm much more likely to work with you in that case.
Right.
This is real important for therapists, by the way.
Talk to me.
Well, therapists can overpromise.
Okay.
And I've done it in my own career, especially in the beginning. You know, people would ask a question, I didn't really have the answer.
Yeah.
And so I'd fake it for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Instead of just saying, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about it some more.
Yeah.
How are you working with it right now? I didn't have enough self-confidence to be relaxed enough to let there be questions sometimes.
Open questions.
Which is open questions, which is really the way we can collaborate now. Sometimes my clients have the best ideas of all
Yeah.
for what's going to be helpful. Well, there was this time I did this. Oh, really? Okay. Well, let's try that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to be the guy all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So Terry, going back to boundaries, what I'm hearing you say, and I just want to make sure I'm getting it right, is the number one thing if I want to assert boundaries, if I want to assert myself, is to be comfortable with myself, to accept myself. Mm-hmm. Because what I'm hearing you say is a lot of the fear of being assertive comes from fear of judgment from others. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about what people are going to think of me. Mm-hmm. I'm worried they're not going to like me. I'm worried I'm going to let them down. Any number of things. Mm-hmm. I'm worried that I'm going to have to carry their feelings if they feel bad about it, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm accepting of myself, which takes a lot of work, right?
It does.
It takes a lot of work that you help people do, right?
Yes.
Is find self-acceptance. Then I can look at somebody else in the eye and say, coming from a place of centeredness, coming from a place of well-being, I do or do not have time, or I do or do not want to do that. Or I'll give that a try, and I'll give it a try for a couple weeks, but if I decide it's not for me, I may not want to keep going, right? Mm-hmm. All those things require somebody to be in their own center, mm-hmm. taking care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have those things, what I'm hearing you say is, we might not assert ourselves at all.
That's right.
We might just get carried along by other people's demands.
We'll just hide out.
Yeah. Yeah, we've spoken about Gabor Mate before, Dr. Gabor Mate, and he discusses how when people begin to assert themselves, they find out who their friends are. Because there are certain people in our lives who enjoy us being around because we do things for them. And as soon as we begin to do fewer things for them, because we start to take care of ourselves more, right, they might resent it. Right. And he encourages people to be okay with that, right? Because he says the people who really love you, right, the people who are your friends are going to applaud when they start to see you assert yourself. Hey Terry, I'm really proud of you, for speaking up, for saying no to something that you didn't want to do, or for cutting back on the time over there because I know this thing gives you life over here. Mate is pretty clear that it's a great source of information when you begin to assert yourself of who really values you, mm-hmm. And who doesn't, and who maybe just enjoyed having you around because you were convenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, if you're really, really deeply centered in yourself, let's say I talk to a good friend that I've known for a long time, and I'm now asserting myself in a way that I didn't used to, and they don't like it.
Yeah.
I could say, oh, I get it, you're not into me, we're done.
Yeah.
Or I could say, I noticed that you seem kind of resentful today about what I just said.
Yeah.
That's okay. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah.
What's going on with you about that?
Yeah.
I might lose that relationship, I might not, but if I'm okay with myself, I acquire the capacity to be in dialogue with you about what you're experiencing too.
Right.
I don't have to make you wrong about it. It's okay for you to resent me, interimly at least, right?
Sure.
I might not want to hang around it all the time,
right.
but I can dialogue with you about it because I have nothing to lose, because
right.
I have myself. If I don't have myself, I will try to get stuff from you so that I can feel whole. But once I feel like I am whole, I don't need anything from you, except the joy of being together, the joy of collaboration, perhaps, that kind of stuff.
I'm smiling because it is so simple and so hard.
Oh, yes, very hard.
The premise is simple, right?
Yes.
Just caring enough about yourself, being accepting of who you are and what you have and do not have. Very simple premise. Might be the most ultimate struggle that there is. Might be one of the hardest things that happens in life. You've taught me, Terry, to commune with myself. So if I hear my critical self in my head, discouraging or frustrated critical voice, telling me stories, to commune it with a more compassionate voice and just saying, hey, what's going on with you? How are things going from the compassionate voice to the critical voice?
Yes.
And I tell many people this because it works, is to have a dialogue between two different parts of myself.
Yes.
One that's highly critical and one that wants to be more compassionate, and having them talk and having the compassionate voice reassure the critical one, and just listen, just hear it, understand what it's afraid of, and let it know that it's not alone. Because for a lot of years, Terry, that drove the bus for me. My critical voice drove the bus. And you describe it as overplaying the hand. The critical voice kind of learns how to overplay its hand.
Right.
And it sure did with me for a long, long time.
And I like what you just said, Max, because it reminds me that the parts of us that are wounded, that want to get defensive, they developed that defense under conditions where they were alone, where they were with often a more powerful person, like a parent, and they didn't have anywhere to go. They just had to take it.
Yeah.
And so there was no help for them, no place to reach out.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful for those defensive parts when they realize, oh, you, meaning me, you can give me the compassion I need. And sometimes I'll talk with a part of me that went off for some reason in my life, and I'll begin to cry. I'll just say, there. It's okay, I'm here, you're not alone. I'll actually say those words.
Yeah.
I've got your back. Tell me what's going on. And if I just sit there, then this stuff starts coming out. Oh yeah. Just like I'm a therapist to myself.
Right. Right. If I really struggle to do things like this, Terry, if this seems so foreign to me, the idea of communing with myself, the idea of even acknowledging my emotions, you've often encouraged me to start at a simple spot, not kind of take on the biggest challenge I have. So let's go back to asserting boundaries.
Yep.
I think you would encourage me not to go, and I know you have done this, not to go assert my boundaries with the person I'm most intimidated by, right? Don't start with the hardest giant.
No.
Take these small steps of assertiveness. Tell me more about how you think about that, kind of inching into assertiveness.
Yeah, well, there's no need to do to myself now what was already done to me in the past, where too much was expected of me.
Okay.
So it's real important that I give myself the time I need to gain the strength and the centeredness and the wholeness I need to be able to live my life more in greater harmony, let's say, or more effectively.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you need to go step by step, so like, that was great, what are you ready for today? You'll actually get information from inside about that. No, I don't think so, not today.
Not today.
That's too much, right? And if in the meantime you're still in a defensive posture or a codependent posture with one of these big people, okay. You got to be able to forgive yourself for that kind of work. There's an idea, you may be familiar with this, comes from Japan. In manufacturing, it's called Kaizen.
Okay.
And Kaizen is about one little improvement made at a time. And if you keep doing that, then after a while things are really clicking, right? If you go for too much, you might get it, but often there's system breakdown.
Okay. Try to change too much too fast.
That's right. That's right.
So you said Kaizen.
Kaizen, Kaizen, yes.
Lesson Lee is now a part of Seismic. So we have now joined a new company, and my teammates may have had a good sense for being able to assert boundaries in the Lesson Lee world, and now they're entering this bigger space where they don't really know what is going to be acceptable to other people. Going back to what you've talked about many times today, which is just accepting of oneself, is a very important place to come from, right? Because let's say I have a new manager, or my manager has a new manager, and there is a request coming in that I don't think is tenable, I don't think I can get it done. Or there are demands of my time consistently that I'm sensing irritation in myself, I'm sensing dissatisfaction. I'm sensing it's stress in myself, maybe is a better way of putting it, and I don't know what to do. The person who kind of is not accepting, is worried about how they're going to be judged, won't say anything. You've said that a few times now, right? The person who is not at peace with themselves will just preemptively kind of not say anything,
right?
Because they're going to be worried about the outcome.
Right.
What I want my teammates to do in that situation is to get information, and I think you get information by saying something, by saying, "Hey, I'm not sure I have time for this." And seeing how that person responds, or hey, I'm concerned, I can't get it done in 2 weeks, but I can get it done in 4 weeks. Can we make that work? And here's what I like about that: it's getting information about what is going to be considered acceptable by them and what isn't. Mm-hmm. And once that person does that a few times, right? I don't think one time's going to do it, right? We can catch anybody on a bad day, right? We can catch anybody, but we maintain consistency with our assertiveness, and then we learn what's going to be accepted by them and what isn't, and then we decide, do we want to do that or not? That's what I want my teammates to do, is seek the information, and I think a lot of them will be, pleasantly surprised, that when they assert, they're heard. But let's say that doesn't happen, then they know. Like, that's what I want for people in life. Anything you'd adjust about that blueprint?
No, I like it. I mean, obviously it helps if on the team and in the company as a whole that we have some conversation around these things.
Yeah.
Usually it would come from the top, probably. So we want you all to know we have processes that make it okay for you to get information, for you to step up and say, I'm not sure I can do that, or I'm feeling really uncomfortable, I'm feeling really pressured by that. Let's talk about that some more. I mean, in some workplace settings, that's verboten. It's not okay. You can't say that. I told you what to do. What's your problem?
Yep.
Right. So if you have so somebody has to say, this is a different kind of workplace. It's okay.
Yeah.
We have ways to talk about these things, and we want to do that because we want everybody to feel good,
right,
and to be optimally functioning,
right,
not optimally dysfunctioning.
Right. Which is how a lot of workplaces turn out when you don't have those conversations. Yeah, rigid, stressed.
Push.
And like you said, the customers who call in can sense a lack of well-being in no time.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not hard to sense when somebody's dysregulated.
Yeah.
This is a benefit to the entire company to have people understand, hey, how do I get in my prime spot for well-being? I think sometimes, though, people hear like, oh, my well-being, and they think of it as selfish. And I think those are two very different things, right? Taking care of oneself and being selfish.
Yes.
In my opinion, two very different things.
Yes.
Where do we draw the line between those two? Like, when am I being serving myself?
Well, I think being selfish is when I have to do it my way.
Okay.
Right. So I'm not willing to discover with you how we can do this thing together. There's some way that our energies can probably blend, and we don't know where that is yet.
Yeah.
And we can discover that together.
Yeah.
If we're each taking care of ourselves,
yep,
and also want to do this thing together.
Yep.
Right. Selfishness is when I won't listen to you. I won't look for that place, that sweet spot where you and I can collaborate.
Yeah. Yeah. Very helpful. Thank you. We had some questions come in from some teammates. And I think they were speaking about family. I'm not positive on that, but maybe there's a family member that isn't really concerned about a person's boundaries. When the person asserts, that other person doesn't seem to remember what they said and just keeps doing what they want to do. I'm sure you've counseled many people who have had challenges like this in their families. What do you say to somebody like that who says, I just don't know what to do. I assert myself and it doesn't seem to matter?
Well, once in a while, that can mean you actually have to leave the relationship, right?
Yep.
But before you do that, you need to slow the whole thing down, and you need to say, you know what, we need to have a conversation about this. And what I notice is this happens often.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay with how that's going.
Yep.
And I need to explore with you how we can do this in a better way that honors you and me both.
Yep.
So I'm not feeling honored right now by this. But you've got to slow things down. Sometimes you have to have, I tell my clients, you have to have a conversation about how to have a conversation.
Tell me more about that.
Well, some people don't know how to have a healthy, productive conversation. Mm-hmm. They're either going to withdraw and say nothing, or they're going to attack, one or the other. Neither which is going to get you anywhere.
Right.
So how are we going to talk about these things? We need to learn to talk about these ways in which we're different, these ways in which we clash or conflict.
Yep.
And there need to be some ground rules around that sometimes.
Yep.
So a lot of therapy with couples can be just about that. So when your partner does something that hurts your feelings, how do you talk with them about that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't. Oh, okay, how's that working for you?
Right.
Not too well.
Right.
Or I'll tell them, I won't take that crap.
Right.
How's that working for you?
Right.
Not too well. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Withdraw or argue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there has to be some other way to do it, but definitely slow, wait a minute, go on pause or call a timeout.
Yep.
Slow things down. Get curious. What's happening here?
Yeah.
How could this be better? I want to hear you and I want you to hear me.
Yep. And that other person in that situation may still show up in an aggressive posture.
They may.
And at that point, what happens? I mean, I know you can't diagnose everybody's specific situation because these are nuanced situations. But let's say the person just continues to aggress. They blow up every time I try to have this calm, deliberate conversation with them.
Well, I guess I'd have to be honest with them and say, look, I'm not willing to compromise my well-being to meet these demands.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do it. Now what?
I like it, man.
And I don't know what they'll say at that point. If they continue to aggress, I may have to consider, I don't know how to be with you anymore. We really need to slow this down and see if we can fix it, or else we're in trouble. Mm-hmm. I'm just being honest here, like that.
Yeah.
And I can talk like that as long as what? As long as I feel safe with myself,
right.
Have my own self-compassion, and I'm grounded. If I'm not, I'll begin to, at some point, counterattack.
Yep.
That's what often happens. I'll counterattack or I'll counter-withdraw.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's what you think? Fine. See ya.
Yeah. Yep.
Check in tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah. So, Terry, if I don't know if people understand why therapy exists. I don't know if it's generally understood. I think people maybe they believe they understand what therapy does. Mm-hmm. What it does for me is helps me get to exactly what you've been talking about today, which is a place of self-acceptance. Mm-hmm. Acceptance does not mean agreement. There might be parts of my life that I look at and I accept that they're happening. Right. Maybe my behavior, maybe I'm abusing something, and I'm looking at something and going, oh, I am, instead of addressing stress, I am coping, in an unhealthy way. Mm-hmm. And to look at that straight on and accept it does not mean that I want to keep doing it, that I'm celebrating it. It simply means I acknowledge it's happening, right? And when I can see what's happening, then I can do something about what's happening. But when I can't see it, I'm in trouble. Like when I kind of blind myself to my own behavior, I'm in trouble. So what you help me do is accept what's happening, is to say it out loud, mm-hmm. which is tough.
Yes.
I don't know if that's the definition of what therapy is, but that's what it is for me. I don't know if you define it differently or...
Well, that's certainly one aspect of it. I think most people think of therapy as dealing with psychopathology.
Okay.
Right? Like with really crazy stuff,
yeah.
right? People are like so depressed they can't get out of bed in the morning,
yeah.
or they're so anxious they can't function,
yeah.
things like that. But there's really a continuum between coaching and psychotherapy. Those are on a continuum, really. So sometimes some of the stuff I do could fall into the coaching mm-hmm. Domain, and other times it's more psychotherapeutic. The word therapy comes from the Greek word which means to heal. Mm. So all of this that we're talking about right now is about healing, about getting to a place where you can have a life that works for you.
Yeah.
And many people have lives that don't work so well. Parts of their lives work and parts don't.
Yeah.
And they tend to ignore the parts that don't work because it's not fun to look at that directly and deal with it.
Yeah.
Can't accept it.
Yeah.
But if I can let go of the belief that those parts of me that are not doing so well are wrong and bad, and instead give them some respect and some compassion, they'll begin to interact with me in more useful ways.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question now about therapy.
You did. It was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for making time today, Terry. I'm very grateful for you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Awesome.